The Australian Grand Prix was absolute chaos and great entertainment. 3 red flags, 8 DNFs, confusion over the finishing procedure, double points finish for McLaren, and a podium with 3 world champions. What a race. It was absolutely worth the extra morning sleep some of us had to forfeit. Stay tuned to find out why Lewis Hamilton is optimistic that Mercedes can catch up to the Red Bull team. Mercedes generally had a great weekend. During qualifying, the 2 Mercedes drivers, George Russell and Hamilton, made it to Q3 and qualified in 2nd and 3rd respectively. This is the 3rd time Russell has qualified ahead of Lewis this season. At lights out, Russell, who had a better getaway than Red Bull's Max Verstappen, took the inside line of the first corner and came out as leader of the race ahead of Max. Hamilton also overtook Max, who had a slower start at turn 3, making it a 1-2 Mercedes lead, something that we hadn't really seen for a while. Everything was going great for Russell up until the 7th lap when Alex Albon oversteered into the barriers at turn 6, bringing out a safety car that turned into a red flag sooner, but not soon enough, as Russell had already pitted under the safety car, meaning that he had lost track position. For Lewis, all was well, as that made him the race leader, a great feeling that he hadn't experienced for a while. The second start was even better for Lewis, who was able to maintain his lead, and Russell was able to gain a place. However, 2 laps later, Max overtook Lewis, and 6 laps later, Russell's car caught fire due to a mechanical failure, bringing the race to an end. Lewis managed to retain the 2nd position until the end, even with Alonso hot in pursuit throughout the race. The end of the race was bittersweet, but sweeter for Mercedes. The podium finish for 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, who finished 2nd after Red Bull's Max Verstappen and ahead of Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso. It was his first podium this season. On the other hand, Russell didn't finish his race, which had been going relatively well. Despite showing strength in terms of pace, Lewis admitted to having struggled to make sure that Alonso wasn't within range for DRS to be enabled. He was enabled to find a rhythm within his laps, and he was able to keep the Spaniard at bay throughout their cat-and-mouse chase during the race. As a result, he was weary of his tires making it to the end, as pressure from Alonso was intense. Later, when asked about his tires and whether he was bluffing, here's what he said. "I definitely wasn't bluffing. Honestly, I was having to push a lot right at the beginning to keep Max behind. And then Fernando was pushing. They're very, very quick. I think ultimately he was a little bit quicker today behind me, but I just managed to hold him off, so for that, I'm really grateful." Speaking after the race, Lewis reiterated that he still felt uncomfortable in the car. Earlier in the weekend, he revealed that the W14's cockpit was placed close to the front. Hence, they sat closer to the front wheels than the other drivers, which was something that he struggled with. This is because it makes it more challenging for him and Russell to perceive and predict correctly the movement of the car compared to when he was sitting in a more centrally positioned cockpit. Here's what he had to say. "I still feel uncomfortable in the car. I don't feel connected to it. So I'm driving the best that I can with that disconnect, and I'm working as hard as I can to try and create that connection, but it's a long project." But still, considering that we've been down on performance and the straight pace compared to the Red Bulls, for us to be up here fighting with Aston, it's just amazing at this point of the season. We just gotta keep on fighting. A big thank you to all the people back at the factory. Let's keep pushing. We can close that gap. It's gonna be tough, but not impossible. It's really unlucky for George today. We gotta look into it on our side because our reliability has generally been really good, so that's really unfortunate, but otherwise, to get those points is really amazing today. I definitely didn't expect to be 2nd, so I'm super grateful for it. The 7-time world champion is optimistic that they can make up for lost ground. He acknowledges the challenge ahead, but remains hopeful that with hard work and determination, they can overcome it. He also expressed gratitude for the team's efforts and is confident in their ability to improve. Firstly, a huge thank you to everyone back at the factories. I feel so happy right now, and I'm grateful to them for continuing to push. I think we arrived with a car that's been difficult, and for us to be finishing on the podium and getting these points is remarkable. Especially at this early phase when we haven't actually changed the car. It just happened to work this weekend. And we got a lot of work to do to catch Red Bull because they came flying past. But I hope this really gives us a boost of hope and energy. It's so early on in the season, but we're there or thereabouts. So I hope this is a message to everyone to just dig deep and keep pushing because it's not that far away and it's relatively close to reach a win. However, Lewis has admitted that it'll take the whole season to match up to Red Bull. He's continually cited that the Red Bull cars are so fast that unless they amp up their straight line speed and manage to get as much downforce through the corners as the Red Bull cars, they won't ever be close to catching up. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff thinks that their great performance this weekend was track-specific, as they made no changes to the cars. Races in Baku and Miami will give further insight into the potential of the W14 as they await an upgrade kit in Imola. However, they've learned a lot in terms of setup, and while the performance in Australia was strong, they still have a long way to go in order to catch up to the Red Bulls, who are, at the front of the grid. Naturally goes without saying. It's a long journey ahead, but Lewis believes that the car has a lot of potential, and the team is working hard to improve its performance. The team is especially motivated after a performance this weekend and is going to keep pushing and remaining focused on their goal in order to make up for lost ground and come back stronger in the next races. Away from Mercedes, controversy struck again. A tire puncture from Kevin Magnussen hitting the walls on lap 53 resulted in the deployment of a safety car, which quickly turned into a red flag to allow for the removal of the debris on the track. Now, this is where it gets messy. See, the expectations were that the race would end up under the safety car, as there were only 3 laps remaining at the time, but the FIA decided that a green flag ending was necessary. The FIA had been under constant fire for how they handle situations in the track, especially major incidents towards the end of the race. Many fans and drivers were very unhappy with the decision, and the incident sparked a renewed discussion about the FIA's decision-making process, with many stating that there should be a provision in the rules addressing the matter so that everyone knows what to expect. The restart was very chaotic. In turn 1, Carlos Sainz tagged Alonso, spinning him around. Sergio Perez ran wide, and Logan Sargent rear-ended Nick de Vries. A few seconds later, the 2 Alpine drivers, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, crashed while Lance Stroll took to the gravel. What an absolute mess, Soon after that, there was a third red flag and confusion about how things would be handled. The race officials had a tough time deciding whether to restart the race or not. Finally, they decided to resume the race with a rolling start behind the safety car. Sainz was penalized for spinning Alonso, a decision that he thinks was not fair. "I think it's the most unfair penalty I've ever seen in my life," says Sainz. The man was close to tears at the end of the race as he begged to speak to the stewards in hopes of convincing them otherwise. Even Alonso thought that it was too hard. First lap incidents are usually ruled out as racing incidents, and I wonder why this was not. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Did Sainz deserve the penalty? The Australia drama doesn't really end there. There's more. Before the end of the race, a breach of the safety and security protocols by the FIA enabled some fans to get to turn 2 of the track, where a car with a possible electrical discharge was parked. This was dangerous, not only to the fans, but to the drivers as well. We can confirm that the promoter of the Grand Prix is in deep trouble. Well, that was something. And we hope Baku is going to be as exciting as Australia was, except, for the many crashes on the track. And that's all for now. So, until next time, goodbye. And good day, mate. Whatever. I just wanted an excuse to do an Australian accent. Later.